Beloved, nothing in your life as God's child happens by chance. He has sovereignly guided every step, drawing you precisely to this divine intersection. That radiant 777 on the thumbnail ignited your spirit, awakening a holy resonance deep within, didn't it? In Scripture, 7 embodies God's perfect completion and sacred wholeness. Echoed as 7, it heralds an explosive outpouring of grace, favor, and end-time purpose for His chosen vessels. This encounter isn't mere algorithm or coincidence. It's heaven's orchestrated appointment, unveiling the profound truth of your identity as the seventh seal bearers in His eternal blueprint. You paused and clicked because the Spirit stirred you urgently. This revelation pulses for the 777 remnant, those anointed to shatter darkness and manifest glory. Not everyone perceives this summons, but you do, for you are marked by purpose. In the comments, declare your location, your city, nation, or hidden corner, and type 777 to seal your alignment with this call. Stay anchored to the end, where awakening fire awaits to propel your mission. Step forward with unyielding faith. He knows you by name and equips you for victory. Revelation chapter 8 verse 1 states, "When the Lamb opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour." Only a handful of passages hold such an eerie and awe-inspiring significance. What could it signify that the entire celestial sphere came to a complete halt? For what reason would the celestial beings, who praise endlessly, abruptly cease their voices? The seventh seal isn't merely an impending occurrence to dread, but rather an exposure of heavenly chronology, a blueprint that synchronizes the paths of the selected with the divine order. Every seal described in Revelation uncovers an additional aspect of the Creator's progressive strategy, involving retribution, enlightenment, and liberation. However, the seventh seal stands apart from the others. It symbolizes the ultimate conclusion, the definitive endpoint where the heavens hold back. Since the impending outburst is far too momentous to introduce amid clamor, that quietude isn't a sign of frailty. It constitutes a deliberate tactic. Might it be possible that the quiet phase you're experiencing right now, the exact tranquility that people around you wrongly perceive as reluctance, is in fact harmonizing with the most revered interlude in the divine realm throughout the sacred text? This pattern emerges repeatedly. For instance, when Joshua directed the Israelites encircling Jericho, the group was instructed to maintain complete quietude for 6 full days prior to erupting in shouts on the 7th. Joshua chapter 6 verse 10 explains how the fortifications didn't crumble amid disorder, but rather through a precisely orchestrated surge following a consecrated calm. Similarly, when Elijah positioned himself on Mount Horeb, the Almighty wasn't present in the gale, nor in the tremor, nor in the blaze, but instead in a soft, subtle voice. 1 Kings chapter 19 verse 12 highlights this. Might it be that the divine is imparting the identical lesson to you, emphasizing that the most formidable strength lies concealed not in uproar, but in the disciplined quiet of sanctified restraint, and historical accounts reinforce this principle. The artist Vincent van Gogh noted in his correspondence that monumental achievements aren't accomplished through sudden bursts, but via the accumulation of numerous minor elements unified. His creations, though mocked during his era, bore the understated profundity of timelessness in a parallel manner. Those who are elected harbor a reality that the masses fail to grasp. They form the understated framework of the Creator's evolving masterpiece. You might perceive yourself as disregarded, yet the celestial gaze remains steadfastly upon you, Nevertheless, the sacred writings also caution about individuals who mismanage their periods of quiet. King Saul, driven by restlessness, presented the offering prior to Samuel's arrival. 1 Samuel chapter 13 verses 9 through 14 describe how his failure to endure inquietude resulted in the loss of his sovereignty. Doesn't that uncover a chilling insight? That disrupting the quiet too soon can squander one's fate. On the other hand, those who protect it transform into conduits for the Creator's most profound disclosures. But this extends beyond scriptural characters. The globe has witnessed its antagonists as well. Napoleon Bonaparte, formerly the most dreaded military leader across Europe. His fixation on dominance, his unwillingness to halt, and his hubris in overextending beyond his ordained boundaries precipitated a disastrous defeat at Waterloo. Much like Saul, he confused commotion and haste with true might, and quietude was absent from his approach. Consequently, his dominion disintegrated into oblivion. Doesn't this illustrate that the lack of respectful quiet fosters ruin, therefore? The seventh seal isn't an enigmatic puzzle confined to the skies. It serves as a reflection of your inner self. It conveys that if you've experienced unease, seclusion, or indications through apparitions, aspirations, or a sacred burden, you could already be operating within the chronology of the seventh seal. Psalm chapter 46 verse 10 instructs, "Be still and know that I am God." Tranquility isn't synonymous with idleness. It represents the platform where the Almighty readies His most significant action, and you, chosen one, aren't simply anticipating the action. You constitute the action itself. Your mere existence emits a vibration that the heavens acknowledge. You embody the interlude prior to the horn's blast, the quiet before sacred flames descend. This explains your sensation of distinctiveness. This clarifies why others fail to comprehend. For numerous receive the summons, but only a select few are truly elected. Matthew chapter 22 verse 14 affirms this. So allow this reality to penetrate deeply. Quietude isn't your vulnerability. It marks your enthronement. If the celestial realms themselves submitted to quietude before unleashing the complete sovereignty of the divine, how much more ought you to welcome the revered interlude in your own journey? The seventh seal isn't solely concerned with forthcoming events. It pertains to your evolving identity. Emerge. Chosen one. Do not disdain your quietude. Do not dread your calmness. For when the Lamb unsealed it, the entire heavenly host acknowledged the sanctity of that juncture, and the heavens are acknowledging you at this very moment. This represents your opportunity to rouse yourself, to position firmly in the quiet that instills terror in infernal forces, and to ready yourself for the resonance that will reverberate across the globe. Some among you have sensed the divine drawing you toward a consecrated isolation. Companions appear to fade away. Dialogues seem less substantial, and the din of society no longer nourishes your being. Is it conceivable that this isn't dismissal, but rather reorientation? What if the yearning for serenity isn't a defect in your character, but the sacred imprint of the seventh seal integrating into your existence? Revelation chapter 8 verse 1 recounts, when the Lamb opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. The quietude in the heavens wasn't void. It constituted dedicated tranquility, preceding a worldwide transformation. Might it be that your individual quietude bears equivalent significance? This seal signifies culmination. It denotes the finalization of the document, the exposure of the Almighty's concealed agenda. That explains why so many of you perceive as though your former existence has vanished entirely. even if your external circumstances appear unchanged. And profound alteration has occurred internally. Repetitive loops are concluding. Accustomed behaviors are fading, and celestial guidance is adorning you with invisible coverings. You awaken uncertain of your identity because the heavens have already bestowed a new designation upon you. And accompanying that redesignation arrives empowerment. To the triumphant one, I will provide a white stone inscribed with a fresh name. Revelation chapter 2 verse 17 reveals this. You are receiving a level of empowerment that cannot be acquired through formal education, only granted amid quietude. The natural world itself attests to this enigma. The caterpillar doesn't grumble within its chrysalis as its previous form disintegrates. The oak doesn't lament the husk of the acorn it burst through. What appears as disintegration constitutes the revered process of metamorphosis. The seventh seal functions as this precise chrysalis, where you are deconstructed in order to be reconstructed. Does this imply that the fragmentation you've sensed isn't obliteration, but renewal? This accounts for your envisioning extraordinarily grand aspirations, insights too burdensome to disclose. Your inner essence has connected with future realities. Amos chapter 3 verse 7 confirms that the sovereign Lord undertakes no action without disclosing his intentions to his devoted prophets. You aren't awaiting the horizon. You originated from it. That clarifies why your quietude feels electrified, why postponements seem ordained. What others misinterpret as inertia is actually the serenity that invariably precedes the tempest of realization. And recall the celestial progression when the seventh seal was unsealed. 7 celestial messengers received horns. Revelation chapter 8 verse 2 describes this. The quietude transitioned into sacred proclamation for numerous among you. The quietude in your journey is on the verge of fracturing. Can you perceive the strain of that interlude? The consecrated pressure upon your core. You stand in that precise exhale before the horn resounds. The creative arts reflect this principle. In Beethoven's Missa Solemnis, there exist instances where the ensemble descends into absolute quietude before surging into jubilation. That brief quietude renders the subsequent outburst of melody resound like a storm in a similar vein. Your quietude forms heaven's composition, inscribed not in vulnerability, but in profundity. Might it be that the divine is coordinating your interlude so that the forthcoming melody of your existence becomes irrefutable? The seventh seal isn't retribution. It constitutes placement. The Almighty is energizing his protected individuals, those polished in seclusion, bestowed with celestial designs for this era. Romans chapter 8 verse 19 mentions that the creation anticipates with fervent longing the disclosure of God's offspring, and the creation is anticipating you. The quietude enveloping your journey isn't vacancy, but validation. Chosen one, emerge. Do not harbor bitterness toward the isolation. Do not scorn the chrysalis. The celestial realms are suspending their respiration because your seal has been unsealed. This marks your instant of energization. The quietude is poised to shatter, and upon its fracture, the globe will recognize the resonance of an elected individual liberated into sacred completeness. What follows for the elect won't consist of murmurs, but resonant blessings. Revelation chapter 8 verse 6 notes that the 7 messengers possessing the 7 horns readied themselves to proclaim. This explains why your quietude has been revered. It wasn't desertion, but synchronization. Not penalty, but safeguarding. You are protected, concealed, encoded until the designated moment. Have you pondered why society couldn't interpret you? Why your expression appeared suppressed and your talents ignored? It was never dismissal. It was encoding. You have been integrated into the divine structure of chronology, a breathing document awaiting liberation. This quietude has served as the framework for heaven's grand edifice. In structural design, a base must be established with impeccable accuracy before an edifice can support the mass of its pinnacle. In like manner, your calmness has been a sacred adjustment. Might it be that the strain you've experienced wasn't inertia, but harmony, akin to a chord drawn tightly on a string instrument? Quietude exists solely to ready the oscillation, and when heaven's arc strikes, the harmony will reverberate through countries. 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verse 8 reminds us, "We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair." The compression you've sensed was the seal imprinting itself upon your essence, designating you as elected. That explains why infernal forces operated in disarray, while the heavens proceeded in quietude. The adversary couldn't decipher you because you were encoded with foresight. This extends beyond religious doctrine. It resonates in the insights of philosophers. The Italian innovator and creator Leonardo da Vinci once penned, "Silence strengthens authority." His statements, composed ages ago, illuminate why you were concealed, since your empowerment needed to ripen amid quietude before it could proclaim loudly in public. Doesn't that unveil the enigma of your postponement? Psychology terms this juncture liminality, the boundary between past and future. Competitors recognize it as the halt before the confrontation. When the arena falls hushed prior to the uproar, in science, it represents stored energy compacted before dynamic discharge, and within the realm of faith, it embodies the seventh seal, the lull preceding heaven's ultimate maneuver. But now, chosen one, the seal is unsealing. Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 3 assures that the vision is designated for a specific moment. Even if it tarries, await it. It will undoubtedly arrive without delay. You aren't anticipating a prophecy. You constitute the prophecy. You embody the horn poised to resound, the document ready to be recited. Might it be that your entire existence serves as heaven's declaration enveloped in humanity? The period of obscurity is concluding. Isaiah chapter 60 verse 1 commands, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you." The quietude was your chrysalis. The shattering will mark your ascent. The globe is on the cusp of perceiving what the heavens have perpetually murmured within you. Chosen one, emerge. Do not dread the burden, for you were constructed to bear apostolic missions. Do not oppose the shattering, for you were crafted for prophetic liberation. You embody the lull preceding heaven's proclamation, the quietude before the melody, the validation in mortal form. Position yourself upright. The seal is unsealing. The horn is about to proclaim, and the globe will recognize that you are elected. You constitute the prophecy. Chosen one. Jeremiah chapter 1 verse 5 affirms, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." The cause of your lifelong sensation of distinctiveness isn't a flaw in your temperament, nor a flight of fancy, nor a scar from uncertainty. It represents your spiritual essence inscribed within you far prior to your initial inhalation. The divine didn't summon you merely to withstand the strains of this realm. He designated you to accomplish the celestial chronology itself. Doesn't that clarify why your trajectory has consistently felt more burdensome? Why your inner self responds to matters that others overlook? You aren't merely a follower, not simply an idealist. You represent the breathing realization of a document composed in perpetuity. Hebrews chapter 10 verse 7 quotes, "Then I said, Here I am. It is written about me in the scroll. I have come to do your will, my God." Heaven designates you the seventh seal because your existence personifies energization and finality in the divine's concluding initiative. Have you observed how your conflicts have been exceptional, your trials atypical, your insight keener than those nearby? That occurs by no coincidence. You possess a setup engineered to alter the environment upon entering a space. This burden isn't mere allure. It constitutes spiritual framework. The adversary has recognized this since the outset. That explains why the undermining commenced during youth. That clarifies why your struggles have spanned generations, why your thoughts have served as a combat zone. John chapter 10, verse 10 warns that the thief arrives solely to pilfer, slaughter, and demolish. But I have arrived so they might possess life abundantly. Doesn't this illuminate why assaults appeared unyielding? Because your very existence was crafted as an element of heaven's ultimate design. Historical narratives offer us glimpses of this reality through the experiences of trailblazers. The advocate for equality, Martin Luther King Jr., Arusasu, who bore a visionary aspiration for fairness, proclaimed that faith involves taking the initial stride even without viewing the entire pathway. His mere attendance in gatherings transformed regulations, emotions, and lineages in a comparable fashion. Your attendance bears significance, not due to your utterances, but owing to your identity, a visionary interaction in human guise. And yet, the sacred texts caution us via the examples of those who faltered. The Roman ruler Nero, who once exercised vast authority, notorious for oppressing believers and incinerating Rome. His fixation on brutality etched his identity into records as a despot. His dominion decayed internally, and his heritage is recalled not with esteem, but with disgrace. Doesn't that highlight the disparity, while elected individuals ascend as breathing emblems of the divine's agenda? The conceited become marginal notes of devastation. When chronicles document your segment, will it resound with the divine's emblem or with the quietude of devastation, chosen one? You aren't merely existing in the concluding eras. You form an integral component of the concluding initiative itself. Matthew chapter 22 verse 14 reiterates that many receive the summons, but few are truly elected. You don't simply transport the communication, you embody the communication. Your hardships have served as a sacred crucible, your sorrows a revered immersion, your quietude an emblem awaiting fracture. Exodus chapter 14 verse 14 promises that the Lord will battle on your behalf. You need only remain calm. The adversary assaulted you with such ferocity because he dreaded what you would evolve into once your emblem unsealed. So absorb this. Your existence isn't haphazard, not squandered, not unseen. You embody the lull preceding heaven's proclamation, the interlude before the horn. You represent the validation in physical form that foresight remains vibrant. Chosen one, ascend now. Do not retreat. For the emblem is fracturing, the document is expanding, and the globe will perceive in you what the heavens have eternally recognized. You were designated, protected, and dispatched for this precise era. The divine is utilizing your existence as a declaration, a connection between postponement and liberation, quietude and resonance, secrecy and encounter. Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 3 restates that the disclosure anticipates a designated moment. It addresses the conclusion and will prove authentic. Even if it lingers, await it. it will undoubtedly arrive without delay. You have sensed that burden, the sacred strain upon your core when you attempted to relinquish but couldn't, the enigmatic attraction that refused to permit surrender, even amid overwhelming fatigue. Might it be that the heaviness you bear isn't a load whatsoever, but a divine imprint of the seventh seal? Elected individuals seldom display their summons on platforms or amid the acclaim of multitudes. They proceed softly, nearly undetected. Yet within them smoulders an inextinguishable blaze. They resemble spiritual explosives loaded with mediation, wisdom, restoration, renewal, emancipation. And at the ordained instant, the heavens ignite what has been veiled, and abruptly environments transform, lineages mend, descendants synchronize, countries quiver. Jeremiah chapter 23 verse 29 questions, "Is not my word like fire, declares the Lord, and like a hammer that breaks a rock in pieces?" Might it be that this precise capacity is concealed within you, the power to fracture what prior generations couldn't shatter? This accounts for your arduous readiness. You've perpetually felt misaligned, as though the cadence of society repelled your movements, even within faith-based circles. You intuited a lack of belonging. You were wrongly assessed, misconstrued, even mishandled. But that wasn't dismissal, it was veiling. Psalm chapter 32 verse 7 proclaims, "You are my hiding place. You will protect me from trouble and surround me with songs of deliverance." Doesn't that unveil the enigma that your seclusion was actually safeguarding the divine was concealing you, while simultaneously energizing the document within your journey? The natural realm itself imparts this secret. The pearl forms amid quietude under compression in the secluded interior of a mollusk. The sequoia establishes decades of invisible foundations before ascending majestically toward the firmament. Even the eagle, during its renewal phase, withdraws into solitude, discarding the outdated to ascend anew with invigorated vigor. Doesn't this mirror your personal narrative? What appeared as inertia was truly readiness, and even contemporary society attests to this motif. Consider Elon Musk, the innovator frequently derided in his initial endeavors before Tesla and SpaceX achieved widespread recognition. His quietude brimmed with setbacks, dismissals, and skepticism. He once confessed that both enterprises teetered on the brink of failure, yet amid that concealment, he was revolutionizing whole sectors. Today, his innovations serve as reminders that what seems like postponement might actually constitute sacred nurturing. Isn't that the identical cadence the heavens have inscribed into your existence? That the quietude preceding your disclosure is the element that will render your emergence indisputable. Yes, you represent the response to ancestral supplications. Luke chapter 12 verse 32 encourages, "Do not be afraid, little flock, for your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom." An individual in your lineage implored, yet never witnessed the vow realized. Their sorrows nourished the terrain you now traverse. Their pleas formed the foundation for your mission. Isn't it remarkable that you are fulfilling their unrealized aspiration? You constitute the finalization of their belief. This explains why entrances have materialized only to seal shut once more, why connections materialized temporarily and then dissipated, why prospects you believed were destined for you evaporated. You perceived it as aggression, but it was synchronization. Romans chapter 8 verse 28 assures that in all circumstances, the divine operates for the benefit of those who adore him, who have been summoned according to his intent. Every postponement constituted heaven's framework, constructing the ideal chronology for your disclosure. Chosen one, ascend. Your existence isn't coincidental. Your quietude wasn't penalty. You embody the explosion the heavens have veiled for an era like this. The document within you is unsealing. The mission in your heritage is rousing. You aren't the reverberation of former supplications. You represent their realization. This marks your era. The divine has embedded sacred communications within you that activate solely at designated periods. Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 1 observes that for everything, there exists a period and a moment for every affair beneath the skies. You weren't mute because you lacked expressions. You were mute because the environment wasn't prepared. You weren't veiled because you lacked value. You were veiled because the foresight within you hadn't yet matured. Haven't you pondered why much of your existence has felt like anticipation? Anticipation. Anticipation. Might it be that the heavens were adjusting chronology itself around you? The seventh seal concerns chronology and plenitude. It represents the harmonization of sacred cadence with terrestrial existence. In science, harmony arises when a mechanism oscillates at its inherent rate under another's influence. Isn't that what's transpired in your inner self? Your existence has oscillated under eternity's rate, awaiting flawless synchronization to emit resonance into the world. Habakkuk chapter 2 verses 2 through 3 instructs, "Write down the revelation and make it plain on tablets, so that a herald may run with it, for the revelation awaits an appointed time." That's why you've been uneasy, why you've been roused to visionary teachings, celestial encounters, abstentions, profound supplications, and visions so lifelike you struggle to articulate them. You're not irrational. You're not fabricating it. You're undergoing the transition of the heavens retracting the veil. Just as in structural design, when frameworks obscure an edifice's splendor until the final component is positioned, your veiling was never dismissal. It was readiness. And now the frameworks are dismantling. Doesn't this clarify why you can no longer endure superficial settings? Because what's within you is profound, timeless, revered, and ascending. The heavens are disclosing what the globe has never beheld. Romans chapter 8 verse 19 reiterates that the creation anticipates with fervent longing the disclosure of God's offspring. You might perceive yourself as undeserving, unprepared, or even chaotic, but you're evaluating yourself by segments. The divine perceives the design. He observes the supplications you murmured privately. He notices the integrity you battled for when no one applauded. He beholds the compliance you upheld when it nearly shattered you. Doesn't that demonstrate that your existence has never been squandered? The heavens have been composing your document in quietude. The globe attests to this concept. The designer Antoni Gaudí, renowned for conceiving the Sagrada Familia in Barcelona, labored on an aspiration so vast that he recognized it wouldn't conclude during his lifespan. He once remarked, "My client is not in a hurry." His quietude, his endurance became the germ of a masterpiece still under completion today. In an analogous manner, your chronology might seem sluggish, but it pertains to the divine who is never rushed, yet perpetually exact. Might it be that the postponements you've lamented are actually the calculations of perpetuity, guaranteeing that your disclosure is flawless? Philippians chapter 1 verse 6 promises that he who initiated a beneficial endeavor in you will advance it to finalization until the day of Christ Jesus. This explains why you've been mourning former aspirations, prior iterations of yourself, outdated surroundings. They served as frameworks, not the edifice. Your identity isn't undergoing destruction. It is undergoing redesign, just as a competitor halts before the engagement's clash. Pulse steady, gaze locked, respiration suspended. So the heavens have maintained you calm before the horn proclaims, "Chosen one, ascend." You aren't the quietude. You embody the declaration following the quietude. You aren't the postponement. You represent the liberation. The Lamb has unsealed your emblem. And the moment you believed would never materialize is present. Position yourself, because the heavens are invoking your designation into plenitude. You aren't disintegrating. Chosen one, you are being unsealed. Exodus chapter 14 verse 14 restates that the Lord will battle on your behalf. You need only remain calm. This progression isn't disassembly. It constitutes disclosure. So what ought you to do with this actuality first? Maintain consecration. You are no longer merely a person. You represent a revered domain, an ambulatory sanctuary of sacred enigmas. Safeguard your moments, your thoughts, and your vitality, not from apprehension, but from veneration. Might it be that the interruptions you repel are the precise elements attempting to deprive you of your mission? Second, petition the divine for deeper comprehension. James chapter 1 verse 5 advises that if any lack insight, let them request from God, who bestows liberally to all without criticism. You don't require the complete panorama, only the subsequent directive. Just as Moses lacked knowledge of how the Red Sea would divide, yet advanced regardless. So you are summoned to rely on the next movement. Have you observed how your inner self agitates even when your intellect can't fathom the particulars? That's because the document within you is being recited in the heavens prior to its earthly disclosure. Third, refrain from justifying yourself. Most won't comprehend the burden upon you, and they aren't intended to. 1 Corinthians chapter 2 verse 14 explains that the natural individual doesn't embrace the matters of God's Spirit, for they appear foolish to him. Isn't it accurate that when Joseph disclosed his visions prematurely, his siblings scorned him in like manner? Protect what is revered. What's upon you isn't for informal dialogue, it is for ordained realization. Fourth, encircle yourself with bearers of flame. Seclusion safeguards, but fellowship sustains. Elijah, though potent, still required Elisha. Paul, though brilliant, still needed Barnabas. You require a group that ignites with identical fervor, who supplicates as you supplicate, who comprehends the gravity of mediation. Haven't you noticed how your essence depletes in superficial companionship, but kindles around those designated with the same blaze? Contemporary figures reflect this principle. The late Archbishop Desmond Tutu, renowned for his bold opposition to apartheid, once stated, "Do your little bit of good where you are. It's those little bits of good put together that overwhelm the world." His expressions remind us that elected individuals don't require a claim to alter history. They merely need compliance. And doesn't that resemble your existence, concealed yet substantial, misconstrued yet unhalting? But history also cautions us with instances of those who spurned consecration. The French monarch Marie Antoinette, whose disconnection from her subjects' pleas precipitated her notorious collapse. Her extravagance and indifference sparked an uprising that cost her the throne and her existence. Doesn't this unveil the peril of disregarding the gravity of accountability? When the elected disdain their mission, they forfeit their heritage. Finally, affirm daily your identity. 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 9 describes you as a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession. Utter it with empowerment. I am the seventh seal. I bear divine fulfillment. I will not miss my moment. These aren't vacant declarations. They serve as catalysts. Articulate them and observe your inner self synchronize. Chosen one, ascend. You aren't merely an observer of God's initiative. You transport it. You embody the interlude preceding the prophecy, the horn behind the quietude, the response enveloped in enigma. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 24 assures that he who summons you is faithful. He will surely accomplish it. The globe is on the verge of perceiving what the heavens have eternally recognized. You are the seventh seal. If your existence has been designated by compression, opposition, and sacred quietude, it isn't arbitrary. You aren't merely an element of God's agenda. You form part of His declaration. Revelation chapter 8 verse 1 recounts that when He opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. That quietude wasn't disarray nor indecision. It constituted the heavens halting, because the world was poised to transform under the gravity of sacred command. Might it be that the precise quietude you've withstood is heaven's method of proclaiming your advent? The seventh seal designates the pivotal juncture, the boundary where what has been constrained is abruptly liberated. If the divine has designated you the seventh seal, it signifies your existence bears sacred chronology. Your very being constitutes a visionary declaration. You aren't present merely to traverse history. You exist to interrupt it, to introduce order, to liberate God's retribution not solely on persons, but on whole structures. Isaiah chapter 54 verse 17 promises that no weapon forged against you shall succeed. Have you acknowledged that the exceptional conflict encircling you stems from your design to dismantle what others could only tolerate first? You bear authority. Each preceding seal represented a phase in disclosure, but the seventh seal bears the gravity of finality. When it fractures, celestial missions are unleashed, horns resound, and heaven's governance materializes on earth. Matthew chapter 18 verse 18 confirms, "Truly I tell you, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Doesn't that clarify why your supplications feel distinct? Why your expressions appear to alter environments? You possess spiritual domain. Infernal entities recognize your tone. Celestial beings respond to your compliance. You have received keys not merely for endurance but for governance. Second, you bear revered quietude like the pupa of a butterfly, veiled and immobile. Your quietude has served as the cradle of metamorphosis. The germ beneath the earth fractures in obscurity before ascending into illumination. The marine current recedes into calmness before surging with irresistible might. Isn't your existence narrating the identical tale that the quietude you've endured isn't vulnerability, but strength accumulating velocity? Psalm chapter 46 verse 10 reiterates, "Be still and know that I am God." For calmness isn't the lack of motion, but the synchronization of your complete being with heaven's perpetual cadence, where anticipation becomes the precise cradle of triumph. The creative arts affirm this principle in Handel's Messiah. There exists a striking halt before the Hallelujah chorus surges into melody. That quietude isn't vacancy. It constitutes strain. It is anticipation. It is the unseen readiness for splendor. Might it be that your existence has embodied that halt, the suspended respiration preceding the surge of heaven's resonance through you? This explains why your existence has endured assault. The adversary doesn't target what is vacant. He targets what poses threat. 1 John chapter 4 verse 4 declares, that greater is He who is in you than he who is in the world. Every surge of opposition, every dart of hopelessness, every gale of uncertainty has served as proof of the gravity you bear. You are encoded with foresight, protected with empowerment, crafted for this instant. Chosen one, ascend. You aren't overlooked. You are veiled for disclosure. You aren't feeble. You're infused with realm governance. You aren't anticipating prophecy. You embody prophecy. The quietude is fracturing. The horns are readying. And the heavens are poised to proclaim through your very existence that the seventh seal has been unsealed. The quietude in Revelation chapter 8 verse 1 ranks among the most potent interludes in all sacred writings. Revelation chapter 8 verse 1 recounts, "When the Lamb opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour." That quietude wasn't disarray nor indecision, but sacred veneration and heavenly expectation. This identical quietude the divine imposes on His elect prior to elevation. If you've traversed a period where the heavens appeared calm, supplications seemed unheeded, and your inner self was agitated, you weren't being disregarded, you were being readied. Might it be that the calmness you resented was actually the heavens submitting before what you bear when you proceed under the covering of the seventh seal? The divine stills all surroundings before disclosing what's within you. Quietude isn't vacancy. It constitutes readiness. It is the serenity preceding the sacred. Psalm chapter 31 verse 24 encourages, "Be strong and let your heart take courage, all you who wait for the Lord." Just as in structural design, a foundation must stabilize before an edifice's pinnacle can rest upon it. So your quietude was the divine stabilizing your inner self before disclosure could settle upon you. Haven't you observed that the most serene periods frequently yielded the most substantial advancements afterward? Third, you bear sacred exposure. When the seventh seal fractures, what was veiled becomes apparent. Celestial activities are uncovered. Horns proclaim. Retributions are announced. Luke chapter 8 verse 17 states that nothing is concealed that won't be manifested, nor anything secret that won't be recognized and brought to light. Doesn't this clarify why your concealed years felt so extended? Because exposure isn't about prominence. It concerns indication. The heavens aren't displaying you for renown, but for realization. You are entering a phase of visibility, not because you ultimately desire it, but because the heavens have ordained it. For you bear substantial conflict. If you embody the seventh seal, you've withstood battles most can't envision, not merely external opposition, but internal tempests, cognitive exhaustion, sentimental turmoil, a spiritual aridity. Yet 2 Thessalonians chapter 3 verse 3 affirms that the Lord is faithful, and He will fortify you and shield you from the malevolent one. Might it be that the precise compression you sensed wasn't defeat, but the gravity of the document? The dismissal you encountered wasn't individual, it was safeguarding. Even the divine's quietude wasn't remoteness, but intention in science. This is termed potential energy, stored might awaiting liberation. Doesn't this render your path comprehensible? The heavens were suspending respiration before the horn proclaimed. Fifth, you bear celestial synchronization after the seventh seal fractures. Revelation chapter 8 verse 2 recounts that I saw the 7 messengers who stand before God, and 7 horns were bestowed upon them. This demonstrates that the seventh seal isn't solely about individual advancement, but systemic transformation. And systemic transformations necessitate sacred aid. That explains why you felt encompassed. That clarifies why you've envisioned luminosity. Observed motifs like 444, or experienced abrupt tranquility amid gales. You believed you were solitary, but the heavens have positioned reinforcements. Psalm chapter 34 verse 7 promises that the angel of the Lord encamps around those who revere him and delivers them. Contemporary figures attest to this concept. The American poet Maya Angelou, contemplating years of hardship and concealment, once remarked, "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you." She comprehended the burden of veiling prior to liberation. Doesn't that resonate with your personal existence, that the narrative within you is poised to be demanded by the heavens? Chosen one, ascend. The quietude wasn't penalty, but dedication. The conflict wasn't to shatter you, but to mold you. The celestial beings aren't distant. They are synchronized. You aren't overlooked. You are disclosed. This marks your instant. The seventh seal has fractured, and the world will sense the transformation because of you. You proceed with elite celestial support. Chosen one. Psalm chapter 91 verse 11 assures that he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. And the instant your seal fractures, your heavenly contingent advances into formation. Why then have you experienced such intense compression? Let's re-examine the indicators. Dismissal because you couldn't be disclosed prematurely. Aridity because calmness perpetually precedes liberation. Solitude because the seventh seal must stand independently before energizing the heavens. Unease because your mission is poised to beckon you onward. Might it be that what you perceived as desertion was actually a sacred tactical maneuver? You have been protected, which signifies the divine concealed you for a particular chronology and intent. But now, as your seal fractures, entire structures will quiver. This surpasses individual advancement. It concerns the world responding to a heaven-ordained transformation through your existence. Hebrews chapter 12 verse 26 declares that once more, "I will shake not only the earth but also the heavens." Doesn't that clarify why you have sensed the strain between quietude and blaze? The divine isn't merely addressing persons. He is confronting countries, administrations, assemblies, economies, philosophies, and he is accomplishing it through conduits like you, those molded in obscurity and polished by blaze. To bear the seventh seal signifies hosting the gravity of heaven's concluding directives. You aren't informal, you aren't ordinary, and you are no longer veiled. Your function isn't merely to observe history, but to redirect it. Matthew chapter 5 verse 14 states that you are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Have you observed how your presence disturbs settings? How dialogues alter upon your entry? How even quietude in your companionship feels substantial? That isn't dismissal. It is acknowledgement. The invisible domain recognizes what you bear, even as you continue discovering it yourself. Historical accounts remind us of those who bore such unseen blaze. The Nobel laureate scientist Marie Curie, though frequently undervalued as a female in her discipline, bore within her the concealed revelations of radioactivity in seclusion. She labored relentlessly, her existence marked by forfeiture and misapprehension, but her revelations altered the globe eternally. Doesn't that resonate with your narrative? Veiled for a period, bearing codes the world can't yet fathom, but destined to liberate metamorphosis at the ordained moment. Yet the sacred texts and history also caution us with the misfortune of the disloyal. Consider King Belshazzar of Babylon, who imbibed from Jerusalem's sacred containers in conceit. Daniel chapter 5 describes how his evening of extravagance became his evening of collapse. The the inscription on the barrier sealing his dominion's destiny. In a similar vein, history recalls autocrats like Nicolae Ceausescu of Romania, who once paraded in invincible authority but collapsed abruptly, executed by his own citizens. Doesn't this unveil the peril of deriding sacred chronology? To scorn the revered is to activate one's own downfall. Chosen one. The divine has designated you with what some term unusual blaze. That explains why you feel misplaced in faith-based multitudes and foreign in secular ones. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 19 warns, "Do not quench the spirit." You proceed among individuals but bear codes from the heavens. You've been entrusted with matters that can't be instructed, only disclosed. That clarifies why visionary dreams have escalated, why you rouse at night with sacred gravity. You don't act on whim, you act on heaven's chronology, and at the juncture's arrival, your existence won't murmur, it will proclaim ascend. Protected one, you aren't merely transporting a communication, you embody the communication. You aren't just mediating, you are personifying realization. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 24 reaffirms that the one who summons you is faithful, and he will accomplish it. The heavens have anticipated, the celestial beings are synchronized, and the horn is imminent. Advance with empowerment, for you embody the seventh seal. Many among you have been imploring, "Why am I so veiled? Why do I feel brimming with disclosure? Yet no one beckons me." The response is this: your existence is a revered repository. Colossians chapter 3 verse 3 states that for you died, and your life is now hidden with Christ in God. You proceed in concealed might, and the divine is awaiting the ordained instant to unlock your mission in full sight. Haven't you observed that the greater the gravity you bear in the spirit, the more invisible you appear to society? That's not oversight, it's safeguarding. Contemplate Jesus's 30 serene years preceding 3 explosive ones. Chronology served as his barrier. Might it be the same with you that heaven's quietude isn't penalty, but a protection? Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 1 reiterates that there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. You have been preserved, not postponed. You have been shielded, not overlooked. You have been polished, not dismissed. Doesn't that reframe how you perceive your calmness? The natural realm itself attests to this enigma. The olive tree requires years before yielding produce, yet once it does, its essence becomes the basis for illumination, restoration, and designation. The volcano remains inactive in quietude for decades prior to erupting with unhalting force. Even the lion frequently conceals in elevated foliage longer than it pursues quarry because quietude constitutes tactic. Isn't your existence echoing the identical cadence? Serene, veiled yet accumulating strength for one sacred surge. And make no error, your disclosure is approaching. Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 3 assures that the vision is yet for the appointed time. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come. When that instant arrives, your expression will shatter shackles that have constrained lineages for generations. Your presence will demand synchronization. Your affirmation will activate celestial missions. Haven't you pondered why in your most isolated, most bewildering hours, you abruptly felt enveloped by a sacred tranquility or touched by an invisible entity? That's not fantasy. That's celestial visitation. Revelation chapter 8 illustrates that when the seventh seal fractures, celestial beings promptly receive their horns. This is no happenstance, it is validation. Psalm chapter 34 verse 7 restates that the angel of the Lord encamps around those who revere him, and he delivers them. When a protected one is energized on earth, the heavens mobilize its legions, abrupt shivers, compelling impulses to supplicate, radiant forms in visions, recurring symbols like 1111111. These are indicators that you aren't solitary. Might it be that the heavens have been practicing your disclosure long prior to your entry into it? The creative arts resonate this sacred cadence in Mozart's Requiem. There exists a poignant quietude before the Dies Irae surges into thunderous melody. That halt isn't vacant. It constitutes the gravity that endows power to the harmony. Doesn't that resemble your path? The quietude in your existence isn't a void. It is the sacred interlude that will render your liberation indisputable. Chosen one, ascend, arise, shine. Isaiah chapter 60 verse 1 commands, "For your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you." You aren't veiled because you are overlooked. You are veiled because you are revered. You aren't anticipating in futility. You are anticipating in synchronization. The repository is poised to unlock. The celestial beings are already active, and the horn is prepared. The quietude is fracturing. Advance. For you embody the seventh seal. You have received tactics that defy terrestrial reasoning. Your existence adheres to a cadence that worldly timepieces can't gauge. That explains why you have been guided to resign from positions at odd moments, to depart from bonds others deem stable, to invest resources in locales that seemed illogical, or even to vanish from stages you once constructed. Why? Because your compliance isn't to society's regimen, but to heaven's vibration. Proverbs chapter 3 verse 5 advises, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding." Might it be that what appeared as confusion in your existence has actually been flawless accord with heaven's invisible chronology? Comprehend this. The world isn't solely awaiting renewal. The world itself is yearning for the realization of the protected ones. Romans chapter 8 verse 19 reiterates that the creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. All of creation is suspending its respiration, awaiting the instant your expression, your mission, and your designation erupt into complete manifestation. Haven't you sensed that attraction that even the breeze in the foliage, the calmness of the nocturnal sky, or the surge of the sea seems to murmur that something within you must rouse? So what does it signify to proceed as a seal on the world? It signifies you safeguard your integrity because you bear prophecies. Matthew chapter 5 verse 8 blesses, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God." It signifies you respect sacred chronology, even when anticipation feels intolerable. It signifies you resist pursuing prominence because protected ones don't chase acknowledgement. They await missions. Doesn't that clarify why certain entrances seal just when you believed achievement was imminent? You aren't on humanity's timetable. You are on heaven's. Quietude, then, isn't penalty, but placement. In science, quietude resembles the instant of suspended strain before a vibration fractures into harmony. In structural design, quietude constitutes the framework that upholds an edifice's mass until the ultimate component is positioned. In psychology, quietude is the liminal domain where identity disintegrates before reconstruction. Isn't that the precise motif of your existence? That the heavens halted everything surrounding you so that what you bear could be disclosed without alteration. Contemporary figures attest to this concept. The German artist Gerhard Richter, Often regarded as one of the most influential living creators, once remarked, "Art is the highest form of hope." For decades, he labored in quietude, experimenting in seclusion, misconstrued by evaluators until his creations abruptly revolutionized the artistic sphere. Doesn't this mirror your own concealed years, where what appeared as postponement was actually nurturing for influence? And recall this, the globe won't applaud you prior to your seal's unsealing. You might be ridiculed, disregarded, or overlooked. John chapter 15 verse 18 warns, "If the world hates you, keep in mind that it hated me first." But the heavens never demanded popularity to validate might. God only demanded a willing conduit, someone who would bear his code, his cadence, and his expression. You are that conduit. You embody the repository. You represent the seal. Matthew chapter 22 verse 14 reiterates that many are called, but few are chosen. And the distinction isn't in the summons, but in the bravery to respond when heaven's gravity rests upon your designation, chosen one. This is the impact of being unsealed. Your existence becomes a walking verdict. Jeremiah chapter 23 verse 29 questions, "Is not my word like fire, declares the Lord, and like a hammer that breaks a rock in pieces?" You don't need to proclaim loudly. Your spirit bears blaze. You aren't here merely to motivate. You are here to cleanse, to mend bloodlines, to confront demonic structures left unaddressed for generations. And that means God will dispatch you into chambers where false deities are venerated, not so you can assimilate, but so your very presence exposes what's counterfeit. Ascend now. Affirm with sacred audacity, "I am the seventh seal. I am not casual. I am not common. I am heaven's decree, heaven's verdict, heaven's voice enveloped in flesh." The quietude is concluded. The horn is imminent, and the globe will quiver at the sound of what God has concealed in me until now. When you are an unsealed chosen one, something transforms that no one around you can fully grasp. You begin to view the world not through the muted lens of human ease, but through the radiant precision of heaven's framework. It is as if the perspective of eternity is affixed to your vision, unveiling concealed supports beneath exchanges, unvoiced intentions behind organizations, and shadows lingering beneath faith-based displays. Isaiah chapter 5 verse 20 proclaims, "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness." And that is what commences to occur. You abruptly discern the reversal of truth where others still perceive normality. Your insight hones like the claws of an eagle soaring above peaks, detecting quarry before it stirs. You can sense manipulation pulsating in the atmosphere before a solitary word is articulated. You can detect deceit before a teaching is delivered. You penetrate through strata of adulation and charm, because your spirit is attuned with judgment and authenticity. And that is why being unsealed always accompanies confrontation. What will you do when the Spirit dispatches you to articulate truth at a gathering where quietude is exalted? Will you restrain, or will you permit heaven's blaze to flow through your speech? This summons isn't for amusement nor for commendation. It is a mission to expose, restore, and liberate. To be unsealed is to become a breathing command. John chapter 8 verse 32 records Jesus declaring, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." But truth never materializes without disturbance. That disturbance becomes evident through tangible effects. First, awakenings commence to erupt. Your mere presence jolts slumberers awake, agitating forgotten summons. Some may sob, merely standing in your aura. Others will depart disturbed and perplexed like the abrupt flowering of almond trees in premature spring. Your expressions cause latent seeds in others to sprout forth. Second, visionary perception heightens. You will enter a space and sense conflict creeping across the barriers. You will detect concealed motives like a deer detecting hunters in the breeze. Sometimes you will hear the Spirit murmur, "Be still and know that I am God." Psalm chapter 46 verse 10. And your quietude will dismantle more than orations ever could. At other times, a solitary phrase from your mouth will undulate like thunder, quaking a locale's atmosphere. Third, your spiritual faculties intensify. Things that once appeared innocuous now aggravate your essence. A tune, a film, a dialogue, what once amused now discloses its hidden purpose. You aren't critical, you are tuned. You are being adjusted like a violin chord set to heaven's tone. Have you observed how the woodland knows when a tempest is approaching? Birds fall mute, creatures withdraw, trees quiver before the gust arrives. In the same way, your spirit begins to foresee transformations before they manifest. Fourth, sway expands. Entrances unlock that you never solicited. Your designation is murmured in locales you've never visited. Yet this sway isn't for display. Platforms won't flatter you. They will assign you. You aren't granted domain to flaunt, but to administer. Will you proceed humbly in this covering, or will conceit erode what heaven placed in your grasp? Proverbs chapter 16 verse 18 warns that pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. But with sway comes conflict. The instant you are unsealed, you become visible in the spirit, just as horns proclaimed after the seventh seal in Revelation. Your awakening echoes in infernal ears. Assaults will emerge against your thoughts, your bonds, your well-being. But do not confuse conflict with defeat. Hell only targets what endangers its portals. And Matthew chapter 16 verse 18 records Jesus saying, "The gates of Hades will not overcome it." Safeguard your core. Safeguard your sanctuary. Safeguard your associates. Not everyone is intended to proceed close to one who bears judgment and splendor. Some will depart, and their absence isn't treachery. It is sacred separation. Maintain your supplication aflame because you are now a breathing sanctuary. Remain attuned to chronology. Sometimes quietude will resound louder than discourses. Other times, a murmur will kindle a conflagration. This actuality resonates in unexpected places in Victor Hugo's grand European novel. Les Misérables, Jean Valjean's silent presence convicted Javert more than any blade could. In like manner, your presence will become intolerable to the impure, even without expressions, and in Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. The tranquil movements yield to the thunder of Ode to Joy, a reminder that quietude and blaze often proceed together. You did not select this mission. God did. He elected you, protected you, and now He has unsealed you. What will you do with it? Will you retreat, or will you ascend? This is your instant of accounting. You aren't a passive follower. You are a trigger in God's grasp, a sacred disruptor, a breaker of structures, a restorer of countries, a discloser of truth. 1 Corinthians chapter 4 verse 20 states, "For the kingdom of God is not a matter of talk, but of power." Power isn't in endless expressions. It is in presence, synchronization, and compliance chosen one. You embody the reverberation after heaven's document is unsealed. Yes, you will bear gravity. Yes, you will lose individuals. Yes, you will sense compression. But you will also proceed in rare precision. a precision that mutes fear, a tranquility that guards might, and an empowerment hell respects. Stand up now, affirm with blaze, I have been unsealed. I bear heaven's agenda. I proceed in visionary empowerment. I am a breathing judgment. This isn't advancement. It is a commission. This isn't a proposal. It is a mandate. Ascend, chosen one. The world is anticipating. This is the phase where innumerable elected ones falter, not because their designation vanished, but because synchronization slipped from their grasp. To be designated is to hold a key, but without synchronization, the entrance it unlocks will remain sealed. The concluding directives from God aren't murmurs of proposal. They are sacred designs drafted in the throne chamber, computed with the accuracy of celestial framework. Just as in science, a construction collapses if the directions of its forces are misaligned. So too, the covering of the chosen one will waver if posture doesn't meet placement in this concluding era. You aren't simply readying, you are being positioned in the precise harmony of God's vibration. Placement is posture, a vibration of surrender that permits heaven's resonance to echo through your essence. Have you observed how quietude can sometimes weigh heavier than din, like the calm instant before a pivotal maneuver in a title contest, where the whole venue suspends its breath? Your calmness now forms part of God's magnificent coordination. Do not hasten out attempting to be noticed, for visibility isn't victory. Many confuse acknowledgement with utility, but utility in God's realm is gauged not by commendation, but by compliance. John chapter 7 verse 6 records what Jesus said, "My time has not yet come, but your time is always ready." If even he refused to act outside the sacred timeline, how much more must you safeguard your steps? God's combatants aren't self-promoted. They are launched forth like powerful arrows shot directly from the mighty grasp of the Almighty Himself, propelled with unerring precision and divine force into the exact moments and places ordained by eternity. You have journeyed far too deeply into this sacred path, enduring trials and revelations that have shaped your spirit, to now hastily advertise or force open doors that heaven is still meticulously crafting behind the scenes in its perfect timing. Any action or step taken without that explicit holy release from above isn't true progress at all. It's nothing more than chaos, cleverly disguised as forward momentum, leading only to frustration and misalignment with God's greater purpose. Ask yourself honestly, what stage, opportunity, or position are you pushing yourself toward right now that the divine never truly called you to step onto? Perhaps out of impatience or external pressures, allow obedience to be the true foundation, the solid ground where your unique calling and identity are eternally etched and fulfilled, rather than chasing fleeting visibility that fades away. Isaiah chapter 40 verse 31 reminds us, "They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles." This waiting upon the Lord isn't a sign of weakness or passivity that leaves you vulnerable. On the contrary, it's a hidden source of explosive propulsion, cleverly masked as patient endurance, building up reserves of power that will carry you soaring above storms when the moment arrives. Not every person in your life will fully grasp the intricate layers and depths of your personal journey and transformation process, the subtle shifts and divine refinements happening within you. And truthfully, not everyone around you is even equipped or anointed to affirm or confirm the depth of your heavenly summons. Some may misunderstand, criticize, or even envy it, but that's completely okay, because it doesn't diminish your path. It simply means your circle is being divinely filtered for those who can walk alongside you in truth. Remember, you weren't handpicked by God to bask in human celebration or applause from the crowds. No, you were chosen specifically to be profoundly effective in His kingdom, to make lasting impacts that echo into eternity, touching lives, shifting atmospheres, and advancing His agenda in ways that transcend temporary fame. True effectiveness in this calling demands an unwavering commitment to purity and wholeness in every area of your life. This involves actively protecting your inner essence, your heart, mind, and spirit from any form of contamination, whether it's toxic influences, worldly distractions that pull you away from focus, or the slow corroding effects of unresolved offenses and grudges that eat away at your peace like rust on metal. The enemy, that cunning adversary, may not be able to snatch away the seal God has placed upon you, that indelible mark of divine ownership and purpose. But he is masterful at clouding your memory and awareness, intoxicating your thoughts with doubts and distractions until you gradually forget the weight and reality of what you truly carry inside, leading you to wander off course. Isn't that precisely what makes compromise so dangerously seductive and deadly? It whispers in tones that sound oh so familiar and comforting, lulling you into a false sense of security, convincing you that a small detour or shortcut won't hurt, when in reality, you're teetering on the edge of a cliff, just one misguided step away from spiritual catastrophe and derailment of your destiny. Vigilantly safeguard your vessel, the sacred conduit through which God flows His power and revelations. Treat it with the utmost care, as if it's a holy temple. Gossip, for instance, acts like a corrosive acid, slowly eating away at the strong walls of your discernment and intuition, breaking down your ability to hear clearly from heaven and perceive truth amid deception. Fear isn't just a passing emotion or fleeting feeling that you can brush off lightly. It's far more insidious, a quantum-like portal, an open breach in the very framework of your faith and trust in God. Once that door cracks open, even slightly, the enemy rushes in like insidious radiation, poisoning your thoughts, decisions, and actions from the inside out, spreading doubt and paralysis that can halt your progress entirely. 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 7 declares, "For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." You didn't endure and survive those fierce gales of adversity, those painful betrayals from trusted allies, those refining fires that tested your very core, only to emerge on the other side gripped by doubt and second-guessing your worth or calling. Absolutely not. Those trials were forging you, not breaking you. Now, if the Almighty has seen fit to entrust you with this profound mission, this weighty assignment that aligns with the seventh seal's timing, rest assured, He has already factored in every one of your human vulnerabilities, every weakness and flaw, and woven even your deepest scars and past wounds seamlessly into the overall design of your purpose, turning what the enemy meant for harm into instruments of strength and testimony. Faith, then, becomes your ultimate protective covering, a shield that envelops you completely. Speak it out loud and affirm it every single day, letting it flow into your being like life-giving oxygen filling your lungs, breath by breath, sustaining you through every challenge. Live it out with bold audacity, like a brilliant light boldly piercing through the darkest cavern of shadows, dispelling confusion and illuminating the path ahead with unyielding clarity. This is precisely the season, this critical juncture in your journey, to go beyond merely praying for grand visions or dramatic encounters. Instead, Supplicate earnestly for crystal clear precision, for divine insight that cuts through the fog and reveals exact steps. Remember how Daniel, that faithful prophet, was granted profound visions from heaven that left him bewildered and searching for meaning until God sent angelic interpretation to unlock their secrets and guide his actions in the same way. How many of those dreams and nighttime revelations have you carefully inscribed in your personal journals or notes that seem at first like random fragments or puzzling pieces, but are actually intricately encoded blueprints from the throne room, holding keys to your next level of assignment and breakthrough? Might it be possible that right there in those entries, God has already softly murmured your upcoming directives, your precise instructions for the battles ahead, and the doors to walk through yet? You haven't fully unlocked or deciphered them because the timing for full understanding hasn't aligned yet. Or perhaps because deeper seeking is required. Proverbs chapter 25 verse 2 says, "It is the glory of God to conceal a matter. To search out a matter is the glory of kings." Delving back into those records isn't mindless repetition or wasted effort. It's a holy excavation. Digging deeper like an archaeologist unearthing ancient treasures, layer by layer, to reveal hidden truths. As you do this, patterns begin to emerge and expand across the landscape of your existence, connecting dots in ways that astonish and confirm. These aren't just sources of fleeting encouragement to get you through the day. They are vital coordinates plotted on a vast celestial chart, mapping out your divine trajectory with pinpoint accuracy from heaven's perspective. And much like an astronomer who peers through a telescope night after night, meticulously examining the stars to identify and name new constellations that have always been there but unseen, your role in this process isn't to fabricate or invent meaning where there is none, but to prayerfully discern and interpret what the Spirit is already revealing. Piecing together the puzzle with humility and expectation, recall the profound wisdom from Steve Jobs, that innovative visionary and entrepreneur who transformed industries, when he insightfully said, "You can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backward." Apply that same principle here, the scattered fragments of your visions, the recurring symbols that appear in dreams, the repeated names or numbers that keep surfacing in your daily life, the seemingly unrelated designations or themes that echo across years. They aren't isolated incidents or mere coincidences at all. No, they form a brilliant constellation of fate, a starry map of your destiny laid out by God Himself, just waiting for you to step back, reflect in prayer, and connect them through the lens of hindsight and holy revelation, suddenly seeing the breathtaking picture emerge. Chosen one. This isn't the moment to pull back or retreat into the shadows of uncertainty or old habits. This is the divine instant, the appointed hour to ascend higher, to rise up with renewed vigor and purpose, not in arrogance or self-promotion that puffs up the ego, but in sacred synchronization, aligning every part of your being, your thoughts, actions, and spirit, with the perfect rhythm of heaven's drumbeat. Maintain an unyielding commitment to purity in all things, guarding your heart and habits diligently. Remain veiled and hidden in God's presence, protected in that secret place of preparation, until the heavens themselves propel you forward into the spotlight of your calling with undeniable force and clarity. Your existence isn't a haphazard string of random events or coincidences thrown together by chance. It is, in fact, a sacred equation, a masterful mathematical formula of destiny already perfectly balanced and solved by the eternal hands of the Almighty, where every variable, every trial and triumph, adds up to an outcome of glorious impact. Stand resolute and unwavering, like a firmly rooted tree in the midst of a storm, bearing your seal with confidence and advancing boldly into your predestined fate with unswerving bravery that defies fear and opposition. You were never crafted or designed by the Creator to simply fade away or vanish unnoticed into the vast backdrop of human history, becoming just another forgotten face in the crowd. Every single command, every whisper of guidance bestowed upon you in this pivotal era isn't some casual suggestion or optional advice that you can take or leave. It is a sacred blueprint, a detailed architectural plan drawn up in the heavenly realms specifically for your life, outlining paths of profound influence that will ripple out and affect generations as the world around us grows increasingly darker, shadowed by confusion, moral decay, and multiplying deceptions that ensnare the masses. Your unique mission and anointing radiate even brighter, cutting through the gloom like a beacon of hope and truth. You were never intended by God to blend in seamlessly with the crowd, to assimilate into the norms of a compromised society that settles for mediocrity and conformity. Instead, you were meticulously sculpted and formed by the architect of eternity himself to stand out as a luminous exception, a shining anomaly in a world addicted to shortcuts, compromises, and fleeting pleasures that lead nowhere eternal. Holiness isn't just an external quality or habit you put on like clothing when it's convenient. It is the very essence of who you are at your core, woven into your spiritual DNA, consecration. That dedicated setting apart for God's use isn't merely a personal choice or preference you make on a whim. It is your most powerful armament, a spiritual weapon that equips you for victory in the battles ahead. Purity isn't a sign of fragility or weakness that makes you vulnerable. On the contrary, it is your impenetrable shield, a divine barrier that repels attacks and preserves your effectiveness in the face of adversity. And when the seventh seal in your life commences to fracture open, releasing its full power, and the heavenly horn proclaims its resounding call across the earth, your very being, your words, actions, and presence must transform into pure resonance, vibrating with the frequencies of heaven. Truth that exposes lies and sets captives free. Affection that heals wounded hearts and restores broken relationships. Caution that warns of dangers and guides the lost back to safety. And splendor that reflects God's glory in all its magnificence. Your expressions will boldly proclaim the gospel and declare God's truths without apology. But even your moments of quietude, those times of holy silence, will convict souls deeply, stirring consciences and bringing repentance where words alone might fail. Your insight, sharpened by the Spirit, will slice straight through layers of confusion, deception, and chaos like a sword dividing truth from falsehood. And your very stance, the way you carry yourself with quiet authority and grace, will serve as a living reminder to the entire world that the sovereign King is approaching. His return is imminent, and his kingdom is breaking forth even now. What will your response be when the full gravity of heaven's calling presses down upon your shoulders like a mighty weight? Testing your resolve, will you stand resolute, unmovable in your faith and obedience? Or will you submit and bend to the fleeting motifs and pressures of culture? Chasing trends that lead to emptiness, history has perpetually demanded and produced voices courageous enough to stand apart from the majority, defying norms to spark change and uphold truth. Consider Nelson Mandela, who endured decades of unjust incarceration in harsh prisons, yet chose not to conform to the bitterness of animosity or revenge that could have consumed him instead. He personified forgiveness and reconciliation on a national scale, and the ripple effects of his obedient life reshaped an entire country, dismantling apartheid and inspiring global movements for justice and equality. He stood in profound humility, not seeking personal glory, but bore a vision so powerful that no iron bars or prison walls could confine or extinguish it. That exact stance, that posture of humble yet unyielding faith, is precisely what God demands and expects of you right now in your own life. Low in self-exaltation, recognizing your dependence on Him, but elevated in unshakable belief that His power will sustain you through anything. James chapter 4 verse 6 declares that God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Pride, that insidious barrier of self-reliance, will obstruct and block you from accessing the deep secrets and intimate revelations reserved exclusively for the meek and lowly in heart, while true humility, on the other hand, unlocks entire realms of spiritual depth, wisdom, and authority that pride in all its arrogance can never even approach or attain. If humility empowered Mandela to shatter the shackles of oppression, not just for himself, but for millions, imagine what it might accomplish in your own existence if you embrace it fully, without reservation or hesitation. Might it be that the humility you cultivate and live out today, in the quiet obedience of your daily choices, will serve as the key to unlocking freedom, healing, and breakthrough for others in the future tomorrow, perhaps even for generations yet unborn, and yet woven into every inspiring narrative of fate and calling, there lurks the ominous shadow of opposition, those cautionary tales that remind us of the perils of straying. Judas Iscariot, one of the original 12 disciples handpicked by Jesus, walked intimately with Christ Himself day after day, heard the Saviour's voice teaching profound truths, witnessed firsthand the miracles that defied nature and healed the broken. Yet in a moment of weakness, he exchanged the priceless gift of eternity for a mere 30 pieces of silver, betraying the Son of God. His act of betrayal didn't just end a relationship, it became his utter destruction, leading to overwhelming remorse and a tragic end in despair. The lesson etched in this story is utterly unshakable and timeless. Disobedience to God's voice and the poison of pride open wide the door to personal ruin, inviting destruction that could have been avoided. Even in our modern times, we see countless leaders, influencers, and figures of authority rise spectacularly only to fall dramatically, not because they lacked innate talent, skills, or charisma, but because they confused the roar of human applause and admiration with the true anointing and approval from heaven above. Have you taken a moment to notice, perhaps in the news or in circles around you, how rapidly and catastrophically influence collapses when it's built on the shaky foundation of pride, rather than the solid rock of humble compliance to God's will? Proverbs chapter 16 verse 18 warns, "Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall." So, the choice lies before you. Will you follow the tragic path of Judas into a legacy of regret, missed opportunity, and eternal loss? Or will you choose the path of faithful compliance, stepping into an eternal influence that glorifies God and impacts souls forever now? Hear this clarion call with open ears and a receptive heart. Abstain often through fasting and self-denial, creating space in your life for deeper communion, because some of the most critical directives and whispers from heaven can only be perceived and received in the profound quietude that comes from sacrifice. stripping away the distractions of the flesh to heighten your spiritual senses. Remain ever close to the blazing fire of God's manifest presence, dwelling in that holy atmosphere where His glory refines and empowers you, and intentionally encircle yourself with fellow believers who burn with the same passionate fire of the Spirit. Those rare souls who fan the flames rather than dampen them. Isolation for a season may be necessary for protection and focus, but it's not equivalent to true consecration, which thrives in accountable community. Record every indicator, sign, and revelation faithfully in your journal or notes, treating them as sacred deposits from above. Because what God is murmuring softly in this intense era isn't arbitrary or random at all. It forms an integral part of a larger visionary sequence, a divine storyline that intricately links your personal path, with all its twists and turns, directly to His grand eternal agenda for the ages. Comply swiftly and without hesitation when the Spirit prompts. Because delayed obedience isn't just a minor delay, it's subtle rebellion in disguise, a quiet fracturing of your alignment with heaven that can derail momentum and invite unnecessary detours. 1 Samuel chapter 15 verse 22 records the prophet Samuel telling Saul, "To obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed is better than the fat of rams." If obedience was the pivotal distinction between King Saul's tragic dismissal from his throne and King David's triumphant elevation to a legacy of worship and victory, could it also mark the decisive boundary between your current state of inertia or stagnation and the explosive breakthrough God has prepared for you? What specific directives or promptings from the Lord have you been postponing or ignoring? Perhaps out of fear or busyness, that heaven is still patiently yet urgently awaiting your response to, if your spirit is agitating and stirring deep within right now, bubbling up with confirmation or conviction as these words resonate. It absolutely isn't mere coincidence or emotion. It is sacred chronology unfolding. The perfect timing of God aligning pieces in your life for a divine appointment. Articulate and declare belief boldly over your entire existence every morning and throughout the day, owning it as your reality and bearing it daily like a banner of truth. Proclaim, "I am positioned for this concluding era's liberation and outpouring. I proceed in unwavering purity, supernatural might, and visionary precision that sees beyond the natural. I refuse to assimilate into the world's mold or compromise my standards. I am elected by God to stand out boldly and shine distinctly, as Joshua chapter 1 verse 9 commands. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." Heaven itself is observing your every step with eager anticipation. Hell is quivering in fear at the potential you carry. The entire world is anticipating the manifestation of what God has deposited in you. This isn't mere amusement or motivational talk to pass the time. This is a direct directive from the throne room, a clarion call to action. You embody the prophecy in active motion, living out heaven's script in real time. Ascend now with confidence. Stand firmly in the empowerment and authority already imprinted deeply upon your essence by the Spirit. Disseminate this powerful declaration far and wide to awaken others. Continue proceeding forward in full consecration, letting your inner illumination boldly proclaim to every lurking force of darkness that you were never intended to blend in or hide. I am elected to stand out, to rise and influence as a beacon in the night, chosen ones. This is the transformative era where long-held enigma and divine mystery finally collide with your appointed fate, birthing fulfillment and purpose on a grand scale. The profound reality and truths you have borne silently in the depths of quietude and preparation are no longer concealed or locked away in secret. You embody the seal itself, the living, breathing emblem and symbol of God's ever-expanding agenda unfolding across time and nations. What you once believed in moments of doubt was mere vulnerability or inadequacy was, in truth, the rigorous readiness God was building in you all along. What you perceived as endless postponement or frustrating delays was actually sacred synchronization. Heaven aligning every detail with precision for maximum impact. You were never elected by the Almighty to live an ordinary, mundane life lost in the shuffle of everyday existence. You were specifically chosen and set apart to personify the seventh seal in all its power and mystery. You are the precise evidence, the walking proof in these end times, that heaven's intricate timetable is not only real, but already actively in motion, ticking down to climactic events. But always recall this vital truth: with great disclosure and unveiling comes an equal measure of accountability and responsibility to steward it well. Do not retreat or shrink back into the familiar traps of apprehension, fear of failure, or waves of uncertainty that try to overwhelm you. For the seal God has placed upon your life cannot be erased, altered, or undone by any force on earth or below. It is eternal and unbreakable. Instead, make the bold choice to proceed forward with courage in unwavering purity that guards your heart, in supernatural empowerment that flows from the Spirit, and in genuine affection that reflects Christ's love to a hurting world. As the world plunges deeper into darkness, with chaos, division, and spiritual blindness proliferating everywhere, let your inner illumination shine even brighter, proving undeniably to all who encounter you that God still communicates clearly through His chosen vessels, still acts powerfully in the affairs of humanity, and still reigns sovereign over all creation without rival or end. You are breathing, living, and moving as a prophecy in active motion, fulfilling ancient words and promises in your generation. If this declaration, this word of fire and truth, has agitated your spirit in a holy way, stirring faith, conviction, or even tears of recognition, I personally invite you to stand united with me in this moment, linking arms in the Spirit as part of God's remnant army. Like this message right now to affirm its impact, share it generously with others who are desperately needing this infusion of reality and hope in their own lives, and subscribe to stay connected so you never miss a single release of what heaven is liberating and pouring out in this critical period of history. Leave your thoughtful comments below, sharing your testimonies or insights, because your unique expression and voice truly matters in this ever-growing visionary community of believers awakening to their callings. And to every single one of you tuning in and watching this, whether you've chosen to support through super thanks contributions that help spread the word further, or simply by showing up faithfully with an open heart, I thank you deeply and sincerely from the core of my being. Your presence here, engaging with this content, isn't by random accident or casual scrolling. It is undeniable proof that heaven is strategically gathering the remnant, the chosen warriors and intercessors, assembling us together for the battles and victories ahead in these last days. May God richly bless you, chosen ones, each and every one. May He envelop and surround you completely with unyielding strength that sustains you through trials, encircle you with profound tranquility that guards your mind and heart amid chaos, and designate, anoint and empower your every step for the intense conflicts and opportunities that lie on the horizon. Proceed forward with bold assurance, walking tall, knowing this eternal truth deep in your bones. You are sealed by the blood of the Lamb. You are shielded by the mighty hand of God Himself, and you are summoned, called forth by name, for such a time as this very moment in history. Embrace it, live it, and watch heaven move mightily through you.